Well, I mean, time's going to tell. I don't think it's going to go to the extent that it did in my book. Again, I try to use the book as a platform to serve some form of fantasy as to what people would hope would happen, and maybe give some form of solace that this could be possible in an alternate reality.
Alexa Lavoie for Ribbon News, and today, Derek Smith and Kaidi Knipe are back with their third book, Hold the Line. This book was inspired by Tamara Lich's story during the Freedom Convoy. Derek Smith and Kaidi Knipe also produced two other books, How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom and One Face, Two Face, Blackface. All those books are pictured as cartoon stories relating to political views and life in Canada since the truckers' protests. The Freedom Convoy was a once-in-a-lifetime protest that took place for 3 weeks in Ottawa last year during the cold month of February. Truckers and their supporters came to ask the government to end all mandates, but this peaceful demonstration ended horribly with the invocation of the Emergencies Act by Justin Trudeau. The Emergencies Act, it allowed the government to seize bank accounts, arrest protesters, and use extraordinary force to end a peaceful protest against the government. Hold the Line is inspired by the true story of a political prisoner, leader of a freedom protest, native grandmother who had the desire to bring back the basic freedom to all Canadians, Tamara Lich. A strong woman who spent 48 days in jail for a nonviolent crime that was charged against her. Soon, we will know the verdict if Justin Trudeau will be found accountable for having abused of the Emergencies Act. If you want to keep up to date, follow us at truckercommission.com and please donate what you can to help our journalism. And today, we are discussing the new book and politics with Derek Smith.
Can you explain to us what your new book is talking about?
Well, I had approached Tamara Lich back in September because throughout the process of the success of How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom, Tamara and I have actually connected and become very good friends. And I thought that with the release of One Face, Two Face, I really wanted to do something in time for the 1-year anniversary of the convoy that recognized the events that took place. This protest was something nobody could have ever seen come to light in the size and the effect that it did. It was completely unprecedented, and it took the country by storm. So I wanted to put something out that not only recognized the full story of that event, as in the Prime Minister, How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom, we kind of touch on the Freedom Convoy, but I wanted something focused around the Freedom Convoy for the anniversary. And since Tamara had been kind of the unlabeled or I guess you could say self-appointed face of the convoy when it came to media, when it came to coverage, I thought it would be great to seek out permission to use her name and likeness for the book and sort of write the book around her forming a convoy and her going to Ottawa to fight against government tyranny and mandates. And what we came out with in the end, I think, is a good representation of what took place. And I also think it's a little nod to her and all the people who undertook such a massive task of keeping people organized and behaving properly, I guess you could say, while on the streets of Ottawa. But we wanted to pay tribute to everybody. I think we accomplished that.
And what was her opinion like? What did she say to you when you were talking about doing a book about her?
Well, I mean, she was flattered. Of course, because of her bail conditions, Tamara is not even allowed to say, I would like you to do this, or you should put this forward. She simply gave me her permission. And she said she was excited to see what we could turn out. She was a fan, again, of our other 2 books at the time.
And so we saw that the story is really based on a true story, so the convoy. But we saw that at the end, you really did image the end, since it's not yet happening. So why it was important for you to create an end like that?
Well, with Tamara's book, we wanted to create an ending that showed that the convoy wasn't about the people involved, but for Canada as a whole. That they didn't go to Ottawa for themselves. They went to Ottawa for the entire country. They went there to show Canadians that when you're pushed into a corner, when your government refuses to listen, there's power in numbers, and you can make the government listen if you're ready to stand up for what you believe in and stand up for your free rights as a Canadian citizen. So we really wanted to convey that message at the end of the book that, you know, they simply gave us the building blocks should this ever happen again, that we have the power with our voices, with our votes, and as people of a country moving forward, the government works for us, not the other way around.
Do you think that Canada is better now after the convoy than it was before, or you think it way worse?
From a point of morale, I think the country is in a better position. What the convoy did and what the convoy sparked was it brought a sense of patriotism back to Canada that had been missing for 2 years. It brought back, I know for myself, it made me feel Canadian again, to say this is how Canadians have always behaved. They stand up for their fellow man, and that's what they were doing in this convoy. In terms of, has it improved the spectrum for people? I agree with Pierre Poilievre when I say this country is broken, and it needs to be repaired. And granted that should an election be called, should we see a different government be formed in the House of Commons, there's no switch that can be flicked at the end of the day. Repair is going to take time. For people to bounce back economically, it's going to take time. So I'd like to see that happen sooner than later. But in terms of the landscape of this country, we are still very much divided. We're still very much broken, in the words of Pierre Poilievre.
Mm-hmm. My last question would be, you say in your book that Mr. Trudeau have been found guilty to overuse his power for the Emergencies Act. You really think that he will be found accountable of what he did?
Well, I mean, time's going to tell. I don't think it's going to go to the extent that it did in my book. Again, I try to use the book as a platform to serve some form of fantasy as to what people would hope would happen, and maybe give some form of solace that this could be possible in an alternate reality. When it comes down to what I physically saw at the POEC and what I think this report is going to say, I'll just sum it up to, we've seen 6 scandals in 7 years from this Liberal government, and every single one of them they've skated past. When it comes to the Emergencies Act, though, it's a very... It's a dangerous act to invoke, and I think when you bring martial law into the country, someone is going to have to answer for that. Whether it be Trudeau, I don't know, but I don't really hold my breath when it comes to the results of this inquiry, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm very grateful for the likes of YouTube channels and personalities like Eva Chipiuk, Keith Wilson, Tom Marazzo, Clyde Do Something, who have all been speaking out to make sure that, as well as Rebel News, I should add, that have been speaking out to make sure that this report goes before the public at the same time as the federal government. I think that was a huge win for everyone in this country in terms of free rights, and I'm anxious to see what it says.
And if the viewer wants to buy one of your books, where they are available?
So currently, again, much like always, and I know it's much to some people's dismay, the book is only available on Amazon. I have spent a considerable amount of time trying to find other publishers that might be interested. The problem when you attack government, when you attack policy, when you talk about the pandemic, is that a lot of people just don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I can understand that. So currently, Amazon is our only outlet. If people are looking for links, they can always come over to my YouTube channel, which I've now formulated over at Unacceptable Fringe. And all the links to those and our products are in our descriptions for them to find.
So have you been refused because of your book is going against the government?
So Amazon, when how the Prime Minister Stole Freedom took off, Amazon had no issues with anything. Our sales skyrocketed. And once we hit a peak, the book suddenly lost all traction, all sales. People were getting vandalized copies of books, some of which I have in my possession as proof for Amazon, which they still to this day have done nothing about. Our second book, there's been countless events that I've gone to where people have said to me, I was unaware you even had a second book out, simply because of suppression that we get from companies like Amazon, that they'll host the book, but they don't necessarily promote it. I recently reached out to them when we launched Hold the Line and was denied the ability to even pay for advertising because they don't agree with supporting the Freedom Convoy or anything that goes against Canadian government for that matter. But they'll still publish the book and take their end of the royalty split. So it's tough to say how they treat it, but I'm prepared to take any loss as long as it means that eventually our products can get into people's hands and we can keep people entertained and happy.
Thank you so much. You're such a great speaker.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexa. It's been my pleasure to come back.
So if you want to be up to date of what happened during the Trucker Commission, the investigation on the Emergencies Act that took place in Ottawa, you can go to truckercommission.com. You can rewatch our report, and also you can donate generously for our journalism. Thank you so much.